Why race-based reparations are likely unconstitutional. Welcome once again for tuning in to Spin Cycle America, where we have just a conversation about what's going on in the world. I give you nothing but the facts, no yelling, just straight down the middle conversations. I'm your host, Todd. Today we will continue with my week-long uh, special on reparations. Is it unconstitutional? Well, let's answer that question together today. So, in in day one, we talked about or we looked at post 1865 immigration and Civil War sacrifices that already paid heavy prices. And in day two, we covered the $1 trillion cost and the practical nightmare of deciding who pays and who qualifies. So today we're going to examine the legal and constitutional barriers. Even if reparations pass Congress, they would almost certainly face fierce court challenges, and for good reasons. The U.S. Constitution, particularly the 14th Amendment, was designed to promote equal protection under the law, not race based wealth transfer generations later. So let's talk about that. The 14th Amendment and equal protection. So the key here is equal protection clause of the 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868 after the Civil War. It states, no state shall deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. This amendment was meant to protect newly freed black Americans from discrimination. It established that governments should treat people as individuals, not based on race. We're going to get into this now a little bit deeper. So here's what it actually says in in plain English. So citizenship clause, anyone born in the United States is a citizen. This gave citizenship to the freed slaves. Due process clause. The government can't take away your life, liberty, or prosperity without fair legal procedures. Equal protection clause. And this is the big one for the reparations. No state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. This means the government has to treat people equally under the law, regardless of race. It was written to stop states from discriminating against black people after slavery. So this is a big amendment, the 14th. Race-based policies today face strict scrutiny in courts. The highest standard, the government must prove the policy serves compelling interest and is narrowly tailored. So broad reparations payments based solely on race would struggle to meet this test. So over time, courts have applied this to mean the government generally can't favor one race over another with special benefits or punishments. So I want to say that again because this is where we're having the issue. And the NAACP is failing to realize this, and same goes for a lot of special interest groups. So I'm going to say this again. Over time, courts have applied this to mean the government generally can't favor one race over another with special benefits or punishments. So think about that a minute. So most experts believe broad cash reparations based purely on race would fail this test. Think about that. You'd be taking money from millions of people, including recent immigrants such as Asians, Hispanics, poor whites, and even many black taxpayers. So think about that a minute. So you have blacks protesting and wanting reparations, including the NAACP wanting to take money from black taxpayers to pay themselves again and giving it to others solely because of their race and distant ancestries. That's the opposite of equal protection. Think about that, people. We need to start getting a clue here. Section 4 of the same amendment even addressed the Civil War era claims. So they knew what was going to happen. They knew it before people started making this claim, declaring that neither the U.S. nor any state shall pay any claim for the loss or emancipation of any slave. While this targeted slave owners, it shows the post-slavery focus was on moving forward with equality, not creating new racial debt. So somebody was thinking ahead when they wrote this amendment. Somebody knew that they would be, or somebody would come out later on in life and say, we need to collect money. Recent Supreme Court procedures as well. So the Supreme Court has been crystal clear in recent years in the landmark 2023 Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard and UNC decisions. The court struck down race-based affirmation actions in college admissions. So civil justice John Roberts wrote that using race in this way violates the Equal Protection Clause. Students must be treated equally. No race stereotypes or avatars of historical groups. The ruling emphasized that race-based preferences can't go on indefinitely and often involve unfair stereotyping. Think about that, people. This, if we keep doing this, will it ever stop? No. This is going to tie things up, and I'm going to mention this a little bit later, so you're going to hear it again. This will tie things up into courts forever. There will be so much court people putting this into courts. It's going to be unreal. Reparations would be an even bigger step. Direct cash or wealth transfer explicitly based on race and ancestry. Legal scholars across the spectrum have noted this would likely fail constitutional muster for the same reason. It disadvantages millions of Americans, including, again, recent immigrants and non-black taxpayers, purely because the color of their skin or family history. Groups like the NAACP strongly support reparations and H.R. 40, the Commission Bill, but support doesn't equal constitutionally. So this is not even going to fly constitutionality. Courts, not advocacy groups, decide if this fits the Constitution. So they can sit there and cry and scream all they want, but it has to go through the courts. And the courts will say it doesn't fit constitutionality. So other legal roadblocks are, beyond the 14th Amendment, other blocks or other issues include this: non-living direct victims. So courts generally require concrete injury for lawsuits. Slavery ended 160 years ago. Modern claimants are many generations removed. So there's no direct victim in that. Statute of limitation. Most claimants have time limits for a reason. Evidence fades, memories disappear. Proceeding for narrow redress. Past U.S. reparations, such as Japanese American internment, went to direct living victims, not broad racial groups or generations later. Federal versus state. Even state level attempts like California's task force run into similar equal protection problems under the 14th Amendment. People, nobody is reading the Constitution. Nobody is looking at the Constitution. This will not survive the constitutionality test. This will end up in court. If implemented, reparations would trigger massive lawsuits from individuals and groups claiming reverse discrimination. The resulting chaos would tie up courts for years. Judges would be doing nothing but doing this in court, and it would never end, never finish. The principle at stake, the deeper principle is this: the Constitution rejects collective racial guilt or entitlement. It calls for equal rules for all citizens. Using race to punish some or reward others today undermines the very amendment passed to free and protect Black Americans after slavery. Think about that, people. As the court, as the court has reinforced, we should judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin or the action of their distant ancestors. MLK Jr. said that as well in one of his speeches. People, you need to start thinking about this. The 14th Amendment was meant to move us toward a colorblind system of equal rights, not to create permanent racial categories for who owns what to whom 160 years later. So think about that. So, in conclusion, reparations may feel like justice to some, but they clash with core constitutional projections and risk further division. So, if you want to divide the United States even more than it already is, you keep pushing this, and you're going to see lines dug deeper into the sand than they already are. So, what do you think? Can race-based payments ever be constitutional? This is this far removed from slavery? Drop your respectful thoughts in the comments. This is day 3. Tomorrow on day 4, we'll explore better alternatives that could actually help close gaps without pitting Americans against each other. So if you're learning from this series, like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow on the next episode of Spin Cycle America. You all have an outstanding day, and I'll catch you later.